Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Jay Killow. I'm the Managing Director at the University Career Center here at Texas Tech University. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about the importance of resumes and cover letters and try to talk virtually about some tips that you need to know about before submitting a resume or submitting a cover letter. And so I want everybody to know that you can always make an appointment with me or anybody on our staff at the University Career Center to go over your documents, whether it be your resume or your cover letter. You can call us at 806-742-2210, and we'd be happy to meet with you virtually to go over your documents before you send them off to an employer for an internship or a full-time job, because you need to have a couple of set of eyes look at it and edit it before you send it off, okay? So again, our number is 806-742-2210 if you need to make an appointment. So let's go ahead and start talking about resumes a little bit. Today, the most likely way you'll submit a resume is to an online portal with a company or a search engine, a job search engine. And so what that means is that they are most likely using an applicant tracking system software to weed out resumes and to select resumes. An applicant tracking system, or ATS, basically uses spider search keywords to look at keywords in your document. And if your document doesn't contain the correct keywords, you're not going to get selected to be viewed by a person who may be making decisions to bring in you for an interview. So it's very important that you format your resume appropriately. So let's talk about those things. There's three main components to beating an applicant tracking system. The first component that we're going to talk about today is the impact. Okay, so most applicant tracking systems for an entry-level job are programmed to only accept a one-page resume. So for most cases, it's very important to keep your resume to one page, especially at this point in your career. There are exceptions for a two-page resume if you're applying to a graduate program or a scholarship, other areas where you may not use an applicant tracking system. But for the majority of us, a one-pager is ideal. You're also going to want the resume formatted not using a template that you can find in Word or in Canva. You want this to be just a Word document that is a .docx format, or save it to a PDF format. Something I learned recently is that PDFs decay over time. So if you built your resume last year and you sent it off to an employer today, there's a good chance that PDF has decayed, or the formatting has become gibberish according to an applicant tracking system. So what you need to do with a PDF is you always need to save it as a fresh document every time you send it out. So that way it's fresh and the applicant tracking system reads the PDF. Of course, you do not want to include any images or any pictures. So if you've got a logo or a design that's a JPEG, an applicant tracking system will more than likely kick out your resume because it can't read that format in the software. So it's better to just make a vanilla resume if you're applying through an applicant tracking system and not just giving it to a person. If you're giving your resume to a person because they've asked for it, or maybe an email, I think it's okay to have a logo or maybe an image. But if you're applying through an applicant tracking system, you want to avoid pictures, any kind of JPEG or embedded images on the document. Otherwise, you'll get kicked out. The other part of the impact portion is it organized well? Does it look good? Is it aesthetically pleasing? You want to make sure your name is easy to read. You want to make sure that you don't use a calligraphy font. Stick to the Times New Roman, Garamond, Helvetica, sans serif or serif fonts that are most common in Microsoft Word. Those will be ideal for applicant tracking systems because most of the softwares will be able to read those. If you've downloaded your own personal font, I would not recommend using that. After you feel your impact on your resume is quality, it's easy to read, the next thing you need to do is look at the presentation of your resume. The presentation differs a little bit from the impact because the way it's organized, all right? The impact of a resume is that first 5 seconds that an employer looks at it. Are they going to want to read it or not? And you need to pass that test first. But now that they're reading the resume, your presentation is important. And so you need to look at the order of the way you have things displayed in your resume. And so what I've done is I've just got a piece of paper here with 4 quadrants. Basically, the way your resume is going to be broken down is this top left quadrant is going to be the most important bit of information that employers read or look at. And so if you really want to sell your degree or your first work experience, you need to have it up here in this top left-hand corner because we read left to right. And that's what information they're going to absorb most. And so it's very important that your order be correct. So you want to make sure you have most likely your name and your phone number and email at the top in your heading. You probably would go with your education next. And then you probably would want to go with your related work experience after that. There are exceptions. If you've studied abroad, that could be important at the top because it makes you stand out. There could be some certifications or trainings you've had that set you apart. Those could be important at the top as well, but typically you're going to see education and then related or relevant work experience in that top quadrant. The reason that top quadrant is the most important, there have been numerous studies done where employers are asked what do they retain most out of a resume, and typically it's the first bits of information that they see. Typically at the bottom right part of the resume, A, that's where a lot of mistakes are made, and B, a lot of employers don't really pay attention to information at the bottom of the resume. That's typically organizations, honors, awards, where they like to see it, but it's not going to make a big difference in the way they read the resume. Your presentation also includes your fonts, your spacing. Is everything consistent? Do you bold your headings? I would not recommend underlining. Underlining can be distracting on a resume. So you want to make sure that your bolds, your spacing are all very appropriate and consistent. After your presentation is conquered, you then want to think about the most important piece of the resume, which are, I just went blank for a second, hold on, your competencies. Sorry about that. With your competencies, this is where you need to use another bit of research to build your resume. And that bit of research is the job description itself that you're applying to. In the job description, you're going to find keywords. It might be under a section called responsibilities, job duties, job functions. In those responsibilities, you're going to see keywords about teamwork and about analytical skills and about use of technology, being able to present, social media knowledge. Those are all keywords that you need to make sure you have included in your resume. So that way the applicant tracking system, when it does its keyword search, it finds the exact words that are listed in the job description. So that's your key to writing an effective resume with the appropriate competencies. You may be the most qualified person for a job, but if you don't articulate that in your competencies using the same exact language that the job description does, they might not ever see your resume because you didn't make it through the applicant tracking system. So your biggest clue in this process is to really read through the job description, highlight keywords that you think you have and the skills that you have in that job description, and then make sure that you include those in your resume. You also want to make sure that the resume is in bulleted format, no paragraphs. You want to make sure you include the dates that you worked at a job, so that way an employer can see when you started and when you finished. They'll want to know that. You don't need to put the address and the phone number and your supervisor's name. That could go on a separate reference page. So you could leave that off your resume. The biggest thing is to have maybe 3 to 5 bullets per job that you've had. And that way you can describe very well what you've accomplished. You need to be careful though with the way you word your competencies or your bullets, because sometimes being too vague or less descriptive can get you in trouble. I've seen some funny examples over the years. For example, if you worked at a grocery store, maybe your first year of college, you may have been worked the cash register, okay? And so what I've seen a lot with students is they'll say that they worked at H-E-B in San Antonio, and their first bullet is they checked people out. Well, that may be what you did, but it also has different meaning. Did you check people out, or did you check people out as they were going through the line? So I think it's important that you're very careful with your wording when you write your document, and make sure that you're detailed with action verbs. You can find tons of action verbs on different websites, including our Career Center website. If you go to www.careercenter.ttu.edu and go to the Design Your Life section, where you can look at different resume examples, okay? So you wanna make sure that you word your bullets well. The last thing you need to do before you take it to a faculty member or a career advisor is you need to proofread it. One of the biggest reasons people get rejected from the job screen process is misspellings or misused words in their document. So a tip that I learned in my media communications degree here from Tech is read your document backwards. If we're used to reading top to bottom, left to right, your brain gets used to doing that, and you'll miss the mistakes, you'll miss the misused words. And so if you trick your brain and go at the bottom right side of the resume and work your way back, you'll focus on each word. And this will allow you to focus on each word and make sure you use the correct word when writing your resume. For example, there are many assistant mangers on this campus because a student will get in a hurry and maybe their keyboard doesn't work very well, and they'll miss an A spelling manager. And so the manger spell check won't give you a red squiggly line, and they'll just bypass it because their brain thinks it's a correct word, even though it's a little off. So you need to make sure that you use the correct language, correct grammar, spelling, and punctuation when you write your resume. So that way an applicant tracking system will give you a check mark, and you'll go on to an actual person to review your document, okay? So impact, presentation, and competencies are your three biggest components in the resume. You need to make sure all of those things are checked off. And then once you do that, have a third party, a faculty member, an advisor, a parent, somebody look at the document and make sure it's ready to go for the particular industry you're applying to, okay? So we're here to help. Again, 806-742-2210 if you need an appointment with one of us. So now let's move on to the cover letter. The cover letter can be a difficult document to draft if you've never done so, but I want to let you know that it can be easier than you think. One of the saving graces to a cover letter is that it really needs to be very brief. So if you're worried about writing a very detailed, long cover letter, I would recommend that you don't do that. The best thing you can do is keep it short and sweet and to the point, because a cover letter, if it's required for a job, can make or break you in the process of getting an interview, okay? Over the last 20 years here in the Career Center, every employer I talk to, I ask them, do you read cover letters or not? And it's honestly about a 50-50 ratio. Some do and some don't. So it kind of depends on what the requirements are of the application. Best case scenario is that for those employers who don't read cover letters, I ask them, you know, is it okay if a student still submits one? And 100% of them say yes. We'll accept it. We're not going to deny the applicant just because they submit one. I'm just not going to read it. So it's always better to submit a cover letter and them not read it than them wanting to read a cover letter where you don't submit one. So you need to have a cover letter that is ready to go. Cover letters need to be formatted professionally in a block format. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to have your address at the top of the page. Everything is going to be left justified down the page. You're first going to include your address, just your street address and the city, state, and zip. You're going to hit the space or the return key one time. You're going to include the date. You're going to space one time, and you're going to include the name and the address of the person you're applying to. Okay, so if you're applying here in the Career Center, you would address it Dr. J. Killow, Managing Director, box 45006, Texas Tech University, Lubbock, Texas 79409. You want to make sure you include their address in your cover letter. The next thing you're going to do is have a greeting. You're going to want to say, "Dear Dr. Killow." I recommend finding out an employer's name or a person to write to versus just saying to whom it may concern. That seems very distant to most employers. If you absolutely cannot find a name to address the cover letter to, I think you could say, "Dear Hiring Manager." At least that's a little more specific than to whom it may concern. But do your best to find out a name. With LinkedIn and with other web resources, I bet you can do a little digging and find somebody you can write to. All right, so now that you've got the first part of the cover letter started, let's get into the body of the content. There's going to be 4 paragraphs that you're going to have in your cover letter. Your first paragraph is an introduction, just the basic details about you. The second paragraph is going to be a little more detail about you and your experience and how you can have a mutually beneficial relationship with the prospective employer. We'll get to that in a second. Third thing, you're going to talk a little bit about the employer and why you're applying to their position. And then the fourth paragraph, which I think is very important, is a call to action. And I'll explain that here in a minute. After you have your 4 paragraphs, you're going to sign it. You're going to say "sincerely." You're going to sign the document, and then you're going to type your name under your signature. You're going to leave 4 spaces between your salutation, the "sincerely," 4 spaces for your signature, and then your typed name. It's very important that you sign the document. Otherwise, it's not a real document if it's not signed. You can sign, if you've got a MacBook, you can sign using your trackpad. You can sign it on your iPhone and save it as a signature. There's a lot of different ways you can digitally sign a document when you apply online, okay? Let's go back to the 4 paragraphs. I want you to imagine meeting a person for the first time. Typically what you're gonna do is you're gonna say, "Hi, my name is Jay. I'm from Texas Tech University. I graduated with a public relations degree, and I found your job online through Indeed or through the Career Center's website, and I'm submitting my application for the position." If you were to say that to somebody in person, that's exactly what you would write in your cover letter. So think of your introduction and maybe say it out loud, record yourself, and then write that out as your introduction or your first paragraph. Now your second paragraph should be about 3 to 5 sentences. And let's say you've got some relevant work experience for a position, okay? So for me, I worked in publicity and in the music industry. And if I was applying to another publicity type job, after I stated who I was, and then I have a PR degree from Tech and I'm applying to their position, I might say something in my second paragraph like, with publicity experience in Nashville, I was able to write press releases and work with radio personalities in promoting various artists and their shows. I would like to take this experience and use it for your position that you have at your company. And so what I'm doing there is I'm stating that mutually beneficial relationship. I want to tell the employer that I have experience that you're looking for, and I want to use it and put it to work for you at your company. So that's your second paragraph. You basically try to state how you are qualified and how you want to be a part of their team. One thing I commonly find in cover letters from students is that they feel they are the best fit for the job. I would not recommend you say that. Everybody thinks they're the best fit for the job. It's cliche. So avoid that mistake and don't have a statement that states that you believe you're perfect for the position, because everybody does. What you want to state are the facts. You want to say, "I have this experience. I would like the opportunity to put that experience to work for you," okay? The third paragraph's pretty easy. Just do a little bit of internet searching and you can find maybe a mission statement or a purpose for what the company believes in. And then write about that, you know, talk about how you're excited to apply to this position because you believe in the same things this company believes in. And here are some examples. You might say something like that, maybe in 3 sentences or so, very brief paragraph. And then in your 4th paragraph, this is where you have a call to action. Let me explain what that means. Typically, when I read a cover letter, I see a student will say something to the effect of, "Thank you for your consideration for this position. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Have a great day." And that's it. Well, you can almost count on that they're not going to call you because they've got so many applicants. Most likely, they're not going to call everybody. So what you need to do is call to action, call for an action. And simply what you want to do is ask for the interview in a humble, nice way. And so the way I recommend ending your cover letter, the very first sentence of your 4th paragraph might be something like, "Would it be possible to discuss this position in an interview setting?" Question mark. "I'm available at your convenience, either virtually or in person." Maybe you make that distinction in this day and age. Maybe you leave your phone number and your email address, okay, if they do contact you. Another nice thing you could say is, "Understanding your busy schedule, I will follow up with you in the near future to schedule a potential meeting." That might be a nice thing to say to an employer. And then at the end, of course, you always want to thank them for their consideration, okay? So your first paragraph's a brief introduction of yourself. Second paragraph is your experience and how you can have a mutually beneficial relationship with that employer. Third paragraph's about the employer. And then your 4th paragraph is a call to action, basically asking for an interview in a nice way. Would it be possible to discuss this position in an interview setting? Question mark. So I hope this was informative to you today. I wish I could see you all in person. I miss face-to-face teaching, but this is the way we're going right now. And so at least I can communicate with you in some way. And if you have further questions, please feel free to reach out to the Career Center at 806-742-2210. And we'd be happy to visit with you at any time. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great day.